and saying, here's how you do it and all that. And then he realized that she wasn't getting it. And so he put it in her hands, and he's standing behind her saying, now you click here, and now you click there. And she was still really timid about it. And as we were going to bed, he says, geez, Mom, what do you think she's going to do, break it? And I thought, well, kids sometimes do break things. We know because I have to clean up the computer every time they've totally crapped it out. But we have to tell parents that they're not going to break anything. The number one thing, you're not going to break anything. And if you do, you know what? It can be fixed. And then we have to tell parents that it really isn't about technology. You do not have to write code in order to use these products. Frankly, I turn light switches on all day and evening, perhaps more in the evening. And I could not wire a house to make those light switches work if my life depended on it. I couldn't figure out how to make a toilet flush. I couldn't, make my microwave work. And I know that I don't have to know that. Those are not requirements for using these products. And we have to tell parents that it's not a requirement to use a computer or to use the internet. You do not have to be a expert. And then say, put your hands in there and play. One of the pieces with the curriculum is that we have a fully integrated parent piece that says, go watch the videos, go read the material, go put your own hands into those skill builders and learn them yourself. Learn with your kids, learn just the lesson in advance of your kids. How do you have that conversation? And then how do you as a family say, okay, based on what we know about these kids, how does it come out? And then it's really important to understand when a kid makes a mistake. Did they make the mistake because they didn't have the skills they needed to do it successfully? Or were they willfully trying to be at risk? For example, in the real world, you get them learning to ride a bike. Now they wobble out in the middle of traffic. Did they wobble out there because they couldn't steer well enough? Or did they wobble out there because they are absolutely hoping to be hit by a car? Now, if they wobbled out there because they didn't have the skills, we know that what we do is we say, okay, let's go back and let's practice those skills some more. If they went out there because they, wantonly just wanted to, disregard the rules, then you say, okay, we've broken some trust here. We need to go back a few steps and rebuild some trust. But one of the pieces that's difficult for families is to say, okay, so with every one of these tools, there's some skills required, there's some social responsibility required, and how do I know which ones go with it? And so one of the things that I have a new website going up today called I Look Both Ways. But one of the things you'll be able to go there and say is, okay, my kid wants to do email. What do they need to know? What are the skills they need to know for passwords, for information protection? And then what are those, conversations, ethical safety boundaries we want to put around it? And then how do we measure each of those independently? I'd like to take a question.
I'm a teacher, and in our school, I teach in a parochial school in Maryland, and that our administration has been hesitant to get involved in when there's stuff about kids for MySpace pages and so forth, because it's stuff that happens out of school. So how can you convince them that they would be doing a service to their parents by doing this education piece that is becoming very evident needs to happen, so that their kids can be successful?
Well, I'll take a quick swag at that, and then I'm going to hand that off. I get a lot of schools still that say to me, well, we just, aren't letting kids on the internet. And I think that is such a tragedy. I think that instead of blocking social networking through high school, that we should be teaching social networking in 4th grade. That we should be saying, this is how you create a safe network, that you're using it in school in real projects for collaboration, and that they learn how to use these as tools, so that when they start using them as toys, they've already understood those risks, those boundaries. They've had practice in a safe, positive environment. And the idea that if we just are going to ban it from the school, if we're just not going to teach this stuff, all you've done is said you've put a lot of kids in a lot of risk because you failed to give them not only the skills they need for the 21st century, but the skills they need to navigate socially and safely online. And so the other thing is we talk about online world. And we talk about this offline world. And we really have to stop that. There really is only one world. We have many types of communication in our world. But it's still our world. We may communicate online, we may communicate offline, we may communicate in school, we may communicate out of school. But the ramifications, the ripple effect of a statement made outside of school, and I'm going to just beat the snot out of you, has ramifications in the school. Because now you have a kid who's scared of doing anything. If you have a kid who's scared of what's going to happen in school, they don't have the capacity to learn. They're absolutely in a survival mode. And they're afraid to leave the one class to get to the next one because they don't know if they're going to get counted on the way. And so we have to help schools get their head out of the sand. As my aunt says, she wanted to ignore the internet and just stick her head in the sand, but she realized that if she did, like an ostrich, she'd have her rear exposed, and she preferred to see what was coming. With that, I'll give comments over here.
I think one of the things that, we've seen the same thing with schools. Some of them will ignore the issue, like when we were saying, you can't get Facebook from here, so they're doing this off school,